Hello, I'm Anna. I am a social worker, and you are either considering social work or you're a social work major headed into your classes, either way of which is perfect, because today I will be talking about what being a social work major looks like, both in the classes you'll take, what you'll be learning, tips for being successful, and some other fun things thrown in there. So, credentials wise, I was a social work major. I graduated in 2021 from the University of Alabama with my bachelor in social work, and then I went straight into my master of social work through Fordham University and just graduated in May of 2022. And so, social work student, have been there, have done that, have now been actually working in the field for coming up on 2 months, not quite 2 months yet. That being said, my YouTube channel started just before my very last semester of college. So I feel like the undergrad part of my social work journey just wasn't documented because I wasn't doing that at the time. And then once I started my master's, I kind of forgot about my undergrad part of journey. And so I want to give BSW programs the attention that they deserve, and that's what we're doing. So what's kind of fun about this YouTube channel having existed for a while now is that I do have quite a few different videos about quite a few different topics. And so I'm going to be referencing different videos in this one because I don't want to go too deep into topics that I've already talked about that you can find elsewhere on the channel. Starting with, I do have a video that is called What is Social Work Really? And it talks about what you learn in social work programs. And so with getting a BSW, a Bachelor of Social Work, being a social work major, all of that's going to be the same, but it will look a little bit different than if you are at a master's level. So the 9 competencies of social work programs, competencies just mean what you will be competent in by the end of your program, are to demonstrate ethical and professional behavior, advance human rights and social, racial, economic, and environmental justice, engage anti-racism, diversity, equality, and inclusion in practice, engage in practice-informed research and research-informed practice, engage in policy practice, engage with individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities, assess individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities, intervene with individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities, and evaluate practice with individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities. So by the end of your social work program, that is what you will know how to do. However, that feels pretty abstract, and it's not necessarily like you just take a class for each one of those 9 competencies. They're kind of just sprinkled throughout, and so by the end, as a whole, you will know how to do all of that. But at the bachelor's level, you get a good generalist background. You get prepared for generalist social work. What that means is that you know the skills and the theories and the concepts of what social workers are doing, and you are ready to do broad social work practice. Essentially, you could go into any sort of different type of setting, whether it's military, in a school, in a nonprofit, in any kind of residential facility, working with unhoused populations, working with LGBTQIA+ populations. You could go basically anywhere and be able to use the skills that you've learned to do social work, and to do social work at the micro, meso, and macro levels. How that's different from when you eventually, if you choose to go get your master's degree, is that master's degree is really more specialized down. And so if you are looking to do clinical social work, then you need an MSW to do that. Having a bachelor's degree gets you prepared to dive deeper into any part of the field without being niched down into just one area. So social work undergrad programs, whenever you're a social work major, it is a liberal arts focus, just meaning that you will take a well-rounded curriculum. Your classes won't all be in the School of Social Work, but they'll all be preparing you to apply your social work skills even better. And all of your classes will take a person and environment framework. This is something that you'll probably get pretty used to hearing said, but person and environment is social work's perspective, social work's mindset. It's different than, say, psychology. Psychology is the study of an individual's brain, of how everything works up in there. Social work does care about psychology, but they look at it in connection to also the place that you're living, the systems that you're living in, the social setting that you're living in, how the world affects you too. On the flip side, sociology looks at culture, the socialness of this world, and how all of that works. They look at the group over the individuals. Social work also cares about that, but they do so while also taking into account the individual. So it's just kind of a tie-up of different interventions, and that person and environment means that you are looking at the person and you're looking at how they are fitting into their environment. That was a super basic definition for a very, not complex, but very important part, and so maybe I'll have to make a video about that later in life. But as a social work major, you will be learning to promote human and social well-being through prevention and intervention methods with diverse populations based on scientific inquiry and best practices. I'm reading that off my phone because that is a direct quote from the Council of Social Work Education, but breaking down each little part of that, promote human and social well-being. This means we're not fixing people, we're not finding problems and getting rid of problems, but it means if there are barriers in someone's way to living the life that they are trying to live, then we aim to knock those barriers down so they can get where they're trying to be. But a big part of it is the self-determination, where it's not I make my client well in the ways that I see that their life will be best. It's that we empower clients to set goals for themselves, have an idea of what they would like different, whether that's fighting a mental disorder, fighting ways that the world makes it harder to live with a disability, learning ways to cope while going through various times, whatever it may be. We use prevention and intervention methods, which I think is really cool, is that some social work will be in the preventative realm, which is something I really want to get deeper into, like in my personal work, but maybe that's more set for a vlog. This can look like prevention at an early childhood developmental stage, such as parenting classes, such as being involved in a preschool and identifying learning needs that students may have when they're 3, 4, 5, instead of waiting until someone is 45 and struggling in a way that could have been caught earlier. Prevention work can also be with adults, teenagers, elderly. It could be with anyone. But intervention is whenever there has already been some sort of problem assessed that exists, and intervention is then working to fix it. So prevention is identifying and helping before a problem even exists, and intervention is post-problem existing, intervening to lessen the effects of it. Breaking it down further, with diverse populations, you can work with anybody as a social worker. You can work with people who look like you, people who don't look like you, people who believe the same things you do, people who don't believe the same things you do, people from the same country, people not from the same country, all kinds of different areas. Based on scientific inquiry and best practices, anything done in social work is research-based, or should be research-based, meaning that there are social workers who do research, who research to define various social problems, who research various interventions to find what is best practice, what is actually helping clients. Along with learning all of that in your social work undergrad program, you will also complete 400 hours of field practicum. I have videos about field. I have lots of videos about field. I should even make a playlist about field maybe. That may be coming in the future. But as a BSW, you will get 400 field hours, and that can be in various different agencies at a generalist level. Mine was at an elementary school, but some people's are at nonprofits. Some people's, they're acting as case managers. Honestly, I don't even need to give too many examples because literally anywhere you could think of, you could have field at. Hospitals, college. There's so many different places you can be. All of that being said, getting more down into the nitty-gritty of it, what are the actual classes that you will be taking? Obviously, this will look different school to school, but there are themes that lie throughout. So I'm going to say, like, you would not believe how many different colleges' websites I looked at while researching this video just to make sure I wasn't going to be saying anything out the side of my neck that wasn't actually true. Not every program is going to be the same with the classes you take, but you'll be learning the same things. And so sometimes there may be 2 topics grouped up into one class, or one topic that is like a 3-class series, depending on your college. So don't take this as law, but what you will be learning, and most likely the classes that will be included, there'll be some sort of general education. This is just common for all college. You'll have about 2 years, unless you have any like AP credits, dual enrollment credits, anything like that to knock some of them out. But general education is about the same for any college major, where you have to take some sort of English, some sort of history, some sort of science, all of those. So you will have to do that. But what's cool about social work is that there will also be some required classes for your actual major that are outside of school of social work. And so for me, those were the psychology classes, sociology classes. Statistics is a requirement. People tend to not like statistics, but you have to take it, so you just gotta get it done. It'll be okay. But for me personally, we had to take Introduction to Psychology, Abnormal Psychology, and Social Psychology, and Introduction to Sociology. So kind of gotta dip your toes into other fields of study too that help inform your social work practice. Most likely in your first year, or the first year that you decide to become a social work major, you'll take some sort of Introduction to Social Work class. These are incredible classes. I still think about daily, maybe not daily, weekly, my social work introduction class. In this class, you'll get to know the different areas of field. Like, it truly is an introduction to the field of social work. You'll get to know all different places that you can work, all different places that social workers do work, all different places that social workers maybe will work in the future. You start to understand the terminology, the acronyms, how it actually looks to be a social worker. And typically I found the introduction to social work classes have lots of really cool guest speakers that'll come in and tell you about the work that they're doing in the social work field. So this is a great one to get you excited about the field of social social work, but then also to help you decide if it's really something for you. Because if you're hearing about the work that other social workers are doing and you're like, I cannot imagine spending my life doing that, that's okay. You take the introduction to social work class early and you kind of get a gauge on that. Personally, mine got me really excited for the field of social work, which is good because obviously that's what I'm doing now. You'll have to take some sort of history of social welfare, social policy class. Sometimes these are worded a little different. Sometimes it'll be like history and analysis or however the class is, but it'll be a social welfare policy. Why this is important to people becoming social workers is that it's essentially the history of social work. It's like how the field of social work came to be. So you'll literally learn some parts of the history of how welfare came to be, how welfare programs came to be, starting back in the 17 and 1800s, even like in this country whenever it was beginning. You'll learn different mindsets that have existed through the years about helping people. You'll learn ways that the welfare system has really been really neglectful towards some people. Some things you might learn are like the deserving versus the undeserving poor, because that's a mindset that honestly still exists in today, but like explicitly by law existed back in the olden days, where some people were considered the deserving poor that were deserving of help, whereas some people were considered the poor who were undeserving of help. You might learn things like needs-based versus rights-based mindsets. Needs-based is, I'm looking at you, I see a need that you have, and so I'm going to provide you help so that you become better and have that need fulfilled. Whereas rights-based is, I'm not looking at you and deciding that you have a problem. I'm looking at you and recognizing that you have a human right to this specific thing, whether it's shelter, food, medical care, any of that. And the fact that you're not receiving that is a problem because you have a right to it and you deserve it, and so you're gonna get it now. All of that is social welfare policy. You'll take some sort of social justice, diversity, inclusion, oppression classes, just learning how this world works. You'll learn about your different identities as a person, whether that race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, gender expression. Become very self-aware and learn how your different identities have affected your experience in this world, and how yourself and your different identities that you hold will affect your future practice as a social worker. These classes are cool, to be honest. These classes are cool. You'll take some sort of human growth and development in the social environment classes. You can think of it more so as like a human development class, but remember how I mentioned the person and environment that social work is a big part of? That's why they have that big long name of it, of human behavior and development in the social environment. Think of it as kind of human development though, where you'll literally be looking at from infancy until very old age, the different stages of life essentially, and the different developmental milestones that come with each stage of life, the different problems that people are more at risk of at different stages of life, the different things that people are struggling with at different stages of life, the different normal and abnormal developmental patterns at different stages of life, different risk and protective factors at different stages of life. It's really cool. These ones were some of my favorite classes. Granted, that's also just something I'm interested in because I was also a human development and family studies minor, so I was very developmental kind of gal, but these classes are interesting. You will take, in some sort of breakdown of it, a class about working with individuals and families, a class about working with groups, and a class about working with organizations and communities. Mine personally were 3 separate classes like that. Sometimes they'll do like individuals and groups and then community and however it breaks down, but somewhere, somehow, you'll be learning about working with individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities. And in these classes, it really is teaching you how to interact and how to work with those different groups. So for individuals, you learn soft skills of just how to be one-on-one with a client and how to interact well and beneficially. And you learn research that shows you how to do so well, how to interact with individuals and families in ways that are research proven to be helpful. In groups, you'll learn literally how to facilitate like group sessions. You can learn different ways that groups can go wrong, whether that's like the forming of subgroups within a big group. You can imagine like if there's a bunch of different subgroups and the whole group cohesion is a little bit lower. But you'll learn different facilitation styles and how, if you are sitting in front of a group and you are told to facilitate it, you will learn how to do that well. With organizations and communities, you will learn how to do community organizing, such as defining a social problem, doing your research, talking to people in the community, coming up with an actual community intervention. Both classes that I took for my communities and organizations classes, both in undergrad and in my master's level, had the same group project, and so I don't know if it's just a common one throughout, but we literally had to come up with a community program, like a nonprofit. We came up with the budget, the goal, the missions, the action steps. We defined find the social problem that it was solving, in the sense of if after that class we wanted to actually get running with it, we already had everything we needed to start an actual community organization. It's pretty cool. My heart lies with individuals. Like I'm very much a micro social work gal, but it is a cool class. You're gonna learn about policy. And really this is a place where social work is a little bit different than some related fields, just in our focus in policy. But it's because policy completely affects the way that we work, how we work, it affects our world, it affects the clients that we're working with. And so whenever policy needs change, we need to know how to be able to make that change. And so you learn both specific policies that shape the work we do, while also learning how to advocate for change in policy, because policies are not always what we want them to be. And in staying true to social workers' core values, we want what's best for our clients. And so if there's policies that are happening that are not best for our clients, then we advocate in the ways that we can to change them. You are going to learn research. This is a lot of people's least favorite class, just because it's kind of the most scientific-y, mathy one that you're gonna take, and most likely whenever you become a social work major, you're not wanting to be super scientific-y and mathy, but it's not bad. You just have to learn different research styles, different experimental designs, how to read research studies, how to make valid and reliable research studies. You learn why research is important, because it is really important, and you learn how to set up your own future research projects in case whenever you enter the field you think, there's kind of some lacking research in this area and I would like to know more about this topic. Perfect, you already know how to set up your own research project. As a social work major, you will do your field work, your field placements, your practicum, your internship, whatever you call it. I won't talk much about that in this video because I already have a lot of videos dedicated to that, which I will link obviously so that you can find them, but you'll get 400 hours of field. And then the rest of your classes will be electives of some sorts. After you get your major core curriculum out of the way, you will have room for electives. These ones are fun, especially because social work electives, I think you can find ones that you're really passionate about and that you really want to learn about. They totally vary school to school too. So lots of times it'll be some sort of like current issue in social work, like something that is pressing that you want to learn about. Personally, I took 2 social work electives. My first one was human trafficking. Learned all about human trafficking and how to be anti-human trafficking, prevention of human trafficking, recovery for victims of human trafficking. And then my second one was psychopathology, which went deeper into like the DSM-5 mental disorders and how to treat them, which was really cool at an undergraduate level because usually that's more master's focused, and my master's was focused on that, but it was cool to get that introduction into it through psychopathology as a social work elective. All of that being said, of what you're going to learn as a social work major, I feel like I'm out of breath after all of that. I've got some tips for how you can be successful in your social work classes. I told you I was going to reference other videos a whole lot. On the rest of my channel, I talk a lot about how to not just be successful, but also thrive as a social worker in the making, social worker to be, whoever you are. So in this video, there'll be more practical tips than some of the other videos I have that talk more about like mindset and self-care and all of that, because all of that is important as you are a social work major too, because even if you're not in the field, you're still subject to burnout, you're still subject to vicarious trauma, you're still subject to feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders. And so everything that's important when you're a social worker of taking care of yourself is also important when you are learning social work, when you are a social work student. That being said, the more class related tips that I have in how to be successful as a social work student. Number 1, learn how you learn best and be honest with yourself. For me, I learned pretty early on that I cannot take notes on my laptop in class. I had to handwrite notes. Handwriting notes is more tedious. It can make your hand hurt. Sometimes you feel a little frantic writing really fast, trying not to miss anything. But personally, if I was on my laptop, I was not paying attention. I was doing other things, and I was really good at doing other things, and I wasn't actually learning what the class was trying to teach me. So handwriting it was for me. There's a lot of different learning styles. There's a lot of different ways to take notes. There's a lot of different ways to engage with lectures, and you really just have to trial and error until you find a way that you are retaining information, that you're truly learning information, and then follow through with that. I definitely had more fun in class whenever I was just doing other things on my computer the entire time. However, to actually learn and then be successful, you gotta find a way that works for you, whether that's on an iPad, handwriting notes, maybe you can successfully type notes, however it is, be honest with yourself and learn how you learn best. Number 2, be ready to self-reflect in social work classes. A lot of it is information that you're taking in, but a lot of it you have to apply in a way of how am I going to use this in my future social work practice practice? Why is this important? How does this affect me? How does this affect me differently than others? Social work is definitely a subject where yourself is inserted into a lot of it, because in the future it will be you working with clients, and it's very interpersonal in a way that maybe other majors aren't as much. And so be ready to self-reflect. Sometimes that's a new concept to people. It's like having to think about yourself and learn how to better yourself. But you will be learning that in social work classes. Number 3, be open to discussion, because a lot of social work classes will include a lot of discussion. So don't be afraid to have opinions. Don't be afraid to ask questions, but by really engaging in the discussions that your classes will be having in social work is how you will truly learn from it, because it's not just learning information. It is learning information, but it's not just that. It's also really a mindset, a challenging your mind, challenging your brain, hearing what other people have to say, making your own opinions, seeing how your opinions are challenged, maybe changing your opinions. Whatever it is, be ready to engage with your students, with your professors. Make good use of the learning community that you have while you're in school. Number 4, have some sort of system in place for writing papers. I'll link the video that explains my system for writing papers, but there will be most likely more papers than tests, even if it is like a 1-page reflection paper or something like that. Have some sort of system where you can crank out papers relatively easily, whether that means having some sort of template on your computer that has like your setup for a paper, and so you just have to go in and like put the title and start typing, whether you have some sort of writing process where you like to do an outline and then fill in details. Whatever it is, find some sort of system that can make that be easier for you, because you most likely will be writing a lot of papers. Find if there's any resources available to you on your campus, like any kind of writing centers or anything like that that can help you with papers if that's something that you struggle with more. But find something that works for you, because you will be writing quite a bit. And like I said, I'll link the video that explains my system for writing papers in case it's helpful to you. 5, find what you find interesting in each class that you're in so that you can feel excited about what you're learning about. I think that's something that's really special with social work classes and social work majors, is that most likely you are passionate about something. You're probably not passionate about every single part of the field, because that would be really hard to be, but you're passionate about something, which is what drew you into social work. And so try to tie what you are interested in, what you are excited about, into the stuff that you are learning in your classes. Whether that means that there's a specific population that you really want to work with in the future, and you get to do like a research paper of some sorts in one of your classes, then pick your topic of something that you are excited about, passionate about, and you'll be more excited to do it than if it's something that you are not excited about or not passionate about or not interested in. Just to the best of your ability, kind of warp your learning experience to be one that will keep you hooked, so that you're not just trucking away being bored about a job that you could be really excited for. And 6, this was mentioned in a recent video of mine too, but keep your why close by. And by your why, I mean the reason you even chose to be a social work major. You don't have to be diehard passionate to be a social work major. You don't have to have some sort of tear-jerking story of how you got into social work, but there is some reason that you picked it, whether it's just the means to an end, like you have some profession that you would like in the future and that's why you chose a social work major to get there. Whatever it is, you have some sort of why, and I want you to have something that can remind you of that. Whether it is just like write down why you got into social work, so that whenever days get hard or you're typing a paper and you're like, I don't even want to do this anymore, I'm just gonna drop out of college, you can go back to your why to motivate you to keep on going. There will be harder days. That doesn't mean every day is gonna be hard. There will be harder days in any kind of major that you pick. So just have something that can reorient yourself back to what you're doing and who you want to be to help you on those harder days. This is a lot of information that I just spewed out, and I hope I did so in a way that makes sense. But if you have questions, please ask me. Remember, I did it. And so if I can't help, then I can most likely find maybe something that can. So if you have any questions, if you'd like to subscribe to my channel to see the future videos that are coming out about social work, do so. And good luck in whichever endeavor you are facing, whichever period of life you are coming up on. You have got this. I'm so proud of you. I appreciate you for clicking on this video, and I'll see you next time.